Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Doing something a little bit different today. As you can probably tell by the title of this video, this is going to be a little sort of tactical and army list, analysis discussion video. So basically, the idea of this video is I'm looking at other lists to use, beyond the Demon Prince. Playing Warriors of Curse of the Demon Prince is kind of a cop out because the Demon Prince is so reliable and destructive, and sure, you can be deleted by cannons fairly easily, but if you don't have the tools to do the Demon Prince, you kind of just win the game automatically, and that's what I found from using the Demon Prince. So this sort of video is my culmination of thinking about playing Warriors of Chaos without the Demon Prince. So I instinctively looked towards the other things in the army that I really like the look of, and that of course is Skull Crushers. I mean, the Skull Crusher models are amazing. The way they perform on the tabletop is amazing. They're so powerful. So I really wanted to make Skull Crushers the focal point of the army, and hence the title of this video is the CrusherStar. This is the army list I'm working on is to utilize the CrusherStar, but also how I can make the CrusherStar work. So I'm gonna run through the list. I'll give a bit of explanation to each part of the list as I go through, and then we'll look at how the list will actually be played in sort of the opening stages of the game, because a list like the one I've designed is kind of designed to play one way, and then the tools that are put in are there to guide the list in that direction. Because when you're running a list like this one and you're running the CrusherStar, your really only option is to smash things. So we'll get straight into it. So this is the list. As you can see, we start with the Chaos Lord. He has the Mark of Corn, the Ogre Blade, the Helm of Many Eyes, the other Trickster's Shard, and he is mounted on a Juggernaut. For that awesome setup, will set you back 335 points. The Lord now has 6 Strength 7 attacks, with Always Strikes First, Initiative 7, and he'll make you reroll your ward saves. So he is just built to be a massive dick kicker. He will go into challenges and he'll kill pretty much anybody in a challenge. He will go, he'll just completely, smash out the damage in the combat phase against anybody. The other build I was toying with was to give him the Sword of Bloodshed and go for more attacks. But the Skull Crushers power so many attacks anyway. The higher strength is better because you get pinned on a steam tank, or you get pinned against like Demigryphs or Mournfang. That Strength 7 always strikes first. He'll pick two of them up on his own before anyone else even goes. So he's purely there just to inflict as much damage as possible. Then we have the Exalted Hero. He's also a Mark of Corn. It's the BSB. He has the Crown of Command, the Charm Shield, and the Luck Stone and the Juggernaut. So this guy is, basically the anchor, or the anvil to the Lord's hammer. He makes the Skull Crusher unit stubborn. He has the 1-up with a single reroll. The Chaos Lord also has a 1+, by the way. And he also has 5 strength, 5 attacks, plus his Juggernaut. So he's no joke either. But basically he's there to give the rerolls and to carry the Crown of Command. A common setup for a hero level character, just to be caddying the Crown of Command. And then we have the Chaos Sorcerer, because you need, even in an army like this, you need the scroll, and you do need a little bit of magic. He'll probably take Shadow, basically just to throw out Melkoths, because it's such a low casting value. Being able to drop the weapon skill of targets, or drop the movement, just where the Skull Crushers need to be. The Chaos Sorcerer can just throw out that important Melkoths, or Enfeebling Foe, Withering, whatever he rolls up. He's only level 2, so with this list you're really not relying on magic, and you kind of don't need to. So moving on to the mainstay of the list, as you can see we have a big unit of 6 Skull Crushers. Now this list is built for 2,000 points. That's the points level that my gaming area plays at. So that's the kind of points levels I build my lists to. You can obviously scale this up, scale it back, whatever you need to do to fit it in to your points total. But this is a 2,000 point list. So the most Skull Crushers I could get was 6. 6 Skull Crushers with ensorcelled weapons and standard musician. It's 488 points. Standard Skull Crusher list. I usually run my 4. You should just add in 2 in to make it, more of a Death Star feel to it. I am toying with the idea of maybe running Lances on Skull Crushers, simply because of the banner of the fucking World Dragon. That may be something you see in the future, but that's off topic. So, for the most part, ensorcelled weapons is the way to go. So, not much more to say about the Skull Crushers. Then we have the Chimera with regen. Again, another self-explanatory choice. Or another extremely quick, dick-kicking unit that will keep up with Skull Crushers and just charge into, even if it's hordes, if it's character bunkers, even if it's like a unit of monstrous carve, they can go in and a Chimera can kind of mess them up. Then the actual really important part of the list and the crutch of the army is the 5 units of 5 Warhounds that all have Vanguard and the 4 units of 5 Marauder Horsemen that have the Mark of Slaanesh. Those 9 units are the most important part of this list. And when we get to sort of deployment and how the list plays out, we'll kind of see why. But before we get to that, I just want to look at the Skull Crusher unit a little bit. So this is how the Skull Crusher unit will be set up. A 4x2, Lord on one side, BSB on the other side, and obviously the standard musician in the centre, 2 ranks, and this is how they would deploy. Lord and BSB obviously have to sit in the front rank, but that's fine because they both have 1-up saves. They're both Chaos characters, which are killy anyway. The Lord will be, basically the challenge buddy, and not much is going to kill him. If they're in combat with something that can kill the Lord, then I don't know. Maybe that's bad placement on my part, or looks just gone bad somewhere. But the important thing about splitting the Lord and the BSB up like this is this next picture. As you can see, the weakness of Skull Crushers really is being hit on the flank. Having the Lord and the BSB separate means I can do something like this, where if I get flanked, the character who's on the opposite flank can come across, make way, challenge out with the Lord, and then, or even challenge out with the BSB, whichever way they've maximised most. That character will then challenge. They may or may not accept, depending on who's in, in the unit that's in the flank. If they do accept, then the process of issuing that challenge takes away probably 55% of their attacks coming into the Skull Crusher unit. And then all the attacks are going on to the BSB or the Lord, whoever doesn't challenge. So it's a way of protecting the flank of the Skull Crusher. And obviously they can do it on either flank, whichever one doesn't get flanked. And it's even, with the current command in there, being flanked is not necessarily an issue anymore. However, this means that by doing this, not only will I'll still be on a 9 with a reroll, but I'll probably win combat, because you'll be fighting the Lord, and you'll be fighting the Exalted Hero, and as we've looked at in the previous video, the Lord is a dick kicker, and the Exalted Hero is still a decent character. So the unit set up like this is to basically still maximise the effectiveness of the Skull Crusher unit as a whole, but also to be able to protect the flanks of the Skull Crusher unit, because frenzy is an issue. So being able to do this is a fantastic opportunity to protect the flanks. And also, splitting up the Lord and the BSB on either corner also makes it easy for them to charge out of the unit. It makes them harder to chaff up. You can't necessarily just stick one small redirection unit on the corner, because they'll just charge the character out the other corner, or vice versa, or whatever it may be, if it's a target worth charging into. So the BSB's got a 1-up save and Crown of Command. He can, charge out the unit into a block, hold it up if he's not going to get flanked. Those sort of things can go on. So that's how basically the entire list at 2,000 points is how it kind of is set up and how the Skull Crusher unit will operate. The important thing about this list is how it plays. So we'll look at deployment now. This is how I deploy. Skull Crushers go bang in the centre of my deployment zone. That's the big red squares of Skull Crushers. The little grey box to the right of Skull Crushers is the Chimera. He's going to caddy along with the Skull Crushers and go wherever he needs to. Depending on whether the opponent has cannons or not, the Chimera may well go in front or behind of the Skull Crusher unit, whichever seems like the safest option at the time. Or he may be off to the side behind a building. You know, it's we're doing this in the theory that we're playing on a completely blank table with no terrain. You know, that changes everything. However, the most important thing is the big line of brown and pink. You know, the black line represents the middle of the table. The brown squares are the Warhounds and the pink squares are the Marauder Horsemen. Obviously, this drawing like isn't to scale. But what you'd do is you'd put the Warhounds down first on the left hand side. Then you'd measure out a 12-inch gap. Put the next unit of Marauder, the next unit of Warhounds down. Then measure another 12-inch gap. Then put the next unit of Warhounds down. Measure another 12-inch gap. Put the last unit of Warhounds down. Then in those 12-inch gaps, right in the centre, or it doesn't necessarily matter too much, but right in the centre of that 12-inch gap, you put the Marauder Horsemen. That's the 12-inch gap is going to become really important later on. So that'll all make sense in a second. Then the spare unit of dogs just kind of go anywhere. They're behind the front running line, as you can see. So that was how the unit would deploy. This big long line of fast-moving, vanguarding core with the CrusherStar behind and the Chimera behind. Then we'll look at the Vanguard moves. So in the Vanguard, all the Vanguarders move up. So all the Hounds push forward, all the Marauder Horsemen push forward, and basically they'll sit on that mid-table line. They're right in the middle of the table. And basically that's just Vanguard. So now we've created a scenario where if my opponent wins the roll to go first, he's contained within half the board. And he's going to move, create space, and then potentially start charging through, or moving the fast cav through, whatever may happen. If I go first, now my opponent's really got something to worry about because this will happen. We'll look at turn 1 movement. So, the Warhounds again will just move directly forward another, say, 10 or 11 inches. They'll sit an inch away from my opponent's deployment line. Wherever he is deployed, the Warhounds will sit an inch away, still with that 12-inch gap in between. The Marauder Horsemen then move up and they'll move up into that 12-inch gap and reform in a conga line facing to the side, making their frontage from 5 inches to 10 inches. And this is why the 12-inch gap is important, because now you can be 10 inches wide in conga line and still be an inch away from the Warhounds. So that's the theory behind the 12-inch gap. Now, if this is done properly, which it should be because it's not too difficult to pull off, but I will have a 69-inch line across my opponent's deployment zone. Bearing in mind a 6-foot board, 72 inches long, that gives him 3 inches on one end of this line to get through. That's just not going to happen. So basically, if I go first, before my opponent's even rolled the dice, I've got him pinned in his deployment zone. He can't move anywhere. If he's a shooting army, maybe he's not too bothered about that. But if he wants to shoot at the Skull Crushers or the Chimera, then he's taking hard cover. If he's shooting at the Horsemen and the Dogs, then all he's doing is clearing a path for the Skull Crushers to charge through. So this barrier of Horsemen and Dogs creates a nice, safe. Basically, the entire table becomes safe for the Skull Crushers to move into. So they just march right up past the halfway line, 14 inches, over the middle of the table, and the Chimera goes wherever he needs to. In this picture, I've just put him behind the Skull Crushers because it's kind of just to represent that he'll go wherever he's needed. If he's going to hide behind the Skull Crushers so no one can charge him, then he can charge next turn, so be it. If he wants to fly out to one flank, so be it. It's all relative. But the most important thing is getting that 69-inch barrier right up. So now at the end of my turn 1, my opponent can't necessarily move anywhere. He can shuffle to the side. He can, maybe do some charges. But basically, I've pinned him in place in such a way that it allows me the opportunity to get the charges I need with the CrusherStar. And what it also prevents is, unless my opponent is running flying chaff, so things like eagles or pterodons or harpies, things like that, he really can't, chaff me up with anything. So if you've got a unit of fast cav, I don't care how many reforms you have, you can't go within an inch of my guys, and they're all going to be an inch apart, so you can't go through. This is the sort of thing we've got planned here. So even fast cav redirectors and skirmishers, it doesn't matter. You can't get out of your deployment zone to chaff up the Skull Crusher, which is important. Then in turn 2, it kind of gets a bit murky as to what actually you do. Well, it kind of depends on what's in the opposition's deployment zone. You can basically throw away your entire army to get this Crusher unit in combat. If your opponent has, like, say you're playing, I don't know, Lizardmen or Dark Elves, and they've got a big bunker with the level 4 in, and that's what they depend on, then you just charge everything out of the way as much as you can and just slam the Skull Crushers into it. You'll be able to reposition the rest of your stuff so they can't get flanked, in theory, because you've got the Marauder Horsemen, unless they all get shot off the table, which against probably anyone but Dark Elves or High Elves, Wood Elves, isn't really going to happen. So you've still got all these crazy, units running around to block counter charges, and you can just, ram the Skull Crusher unit down the throat of your opponent as early as possible. And that's kind of the idea behind the list. So basically, I'm throwing this up. I want to get some feedback from you guys. I want you to kind of think, what do you think about this list? Is it worthy for me to receive a slap for bringing this list, say, to a tournament? How would you play against this list? How would you deal with, if I win the roll to go first, which is what normally a 50-50 roll off? How will you counteract being pinned in your deployment zone right from the get-go, and knowing that if you can't reposition your units properly, then your most important unit is going to get charged by this ridiculous, Crusher Death Star. So that's kind of this the video in a nutshell. It's like, what do you guys think of this army list? Do you think it's horrible? Do you think it's kind of weak because of its one-dimensionalness? Or do you think it'd be, a real bitch to play against? Just kind of want a bit of feedback from you guys. What do you think of the list in its entirety? And those kind of things. Because this is a learning process for me. This is going to be a new list, and getting other opinions on this list before it goes out there will be, will be helpful to maybe make some tweaks and changes. So, that's that, guys. This is somewhat of a different video. If this gets good feedback, then I may do some more, talking through some of the other lists that I'm thinking about running or whatever. So, yeah, that's that, guys. So, thanks for watching, and goodbye.